truly belongs.
If the story of Constantine had to be simplified, I would present it as, imagine being in a situation where I must rescue my loved one who's trapped in a horrific place. Wouldn't it be an ordeal? Now imagine the same problem by replacing I with DC Comics John Constantine and the horrific place as hell, where John travels to rescue the souls of tormented children. The only difference is that these children are not known to him, and he rescues them on sheer compassion and humanitarian grounds. And how does John do this? He clones himself and brings out the demon for the rescue mission. Titled Hellblazer, John Constantine was first introduced in DC Comics' Vertigo imprint in 1988. A magician, a sorcerer, a gifted occultist, and a con artist, John, on his journey to hell to release little souls, meets the Satans from the worst to the worst kinds, and following is a list of those horrifying villains that came into Constantine's life. However, before we begin, please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe buttons. With that out of the way, brace yourself for impact, because this one is going to be one devastating battle. The First of the Fallen. As the name suggests, the First of the Fallen is the first living being to have been ostracized and sent to hell for doubting God's intentions and thinking him to be insane. Although created to be God's ally and an epitome of his heavenly virtues, the First of the Fallen lost out on this coveted designation due to his messed up perception, and many more followed him into the fallen territory, and like all firsts, he became the most known. The second and the third joined him eventually. Mistaking them to be as powerful as himself, he forms a group of three, with the second and the third not knowing that the fourth fallen being Lucifer, the meanest of the Satans, would break his triumvirate of power. When Lucifer renounces his position, the three get back and get First of the Fallen to retain his original title of Satan. First of the Fallen debuted in Hellblazer issue number 42 in June 1991. He makes it to this list for his persistent attempts to claim Constantine's soul. The First's interaction with Constantine and his eventual hatred of him stems from a funeral they both attended in Ireland. The First was there to claim the soul of the dead person who had an alcohol use disorder and sold his soul in return for the most exotic collection of wines in the world. John Constantine, who was suffering from a terminal illness, lung cancer, was there visiting his friend. John is the one who stalls the First's attempt to claim the dead alcoholic's soul by misleading him into drinking holy water. This delay activated a clause in the contract that allowed the dead man's soul to go to heaven since it wasn't taken by Midnite. Enraged, the First swore he would take revenge against Constantine once the cancer claimed his life, but that didn't happen because Constantine had sold his soul to the second and third. Preventing an internal war with his group members, the trio now must cure the occultist's cancer and save his life. The First had been beaten by the best, and in retaliation, they cured Constantine's cancer most painfully. However, this infliction of pain didn't satisfy the First, who continued to seek revenge against him. He created Nergal to harm Constantine in his second attempt, but was defeated. Third attempt. The First's intensity of revenge only worsened when he realized that Constantine had a spy, a demon in hell, who went by the name Ellie. The First tried to punish Ellie, but Constantine ruined his attempts, which brought the score of one-upmanship between the two to 3-1, as Constantine had defeated the First thrice over. And as per the ancient laws, if a mortal manages to best Satan thrice, then the torture that was planned to be inflicted on the mortal would reverse on the torturer. The First refused to take this torture on and continued to nurse his ambition to teach Constantine a lesson. Fourth attempt. To scare him, the First even used his powers on a priest to commit suicide and make him believe the Almighty was insane, only to showcase what kind of torture was in store for Constantine. He visited this priest for 20 years, ensuring he's tainted, and finally succeed by talking ill about God. Fifth attempt. The First, in his continuing obsession over Constantine, figured that the reason for his failure to claim Constantine's soul was his brothers in hell, the second and the third. They weren't as powerful as they seemed to be and possessed the weaknesses of other demons. The First kills them only to fall into the trap that Constantine had set to break the triumvirate. Alone, in pursuit of Constantine's soul, Ellie, the demoness, kills the First using a knife from the second and third remnants. Sixth attempt. The First didn't die and instead was reincarnated as Theo, a Greek fisherman. However, he had retained the memories of his past life. He persevered to get Constantine's soul using Buer, a demon demon, but Constantine tricked him again. The first was returned to his previous life in hell and was given his original title. Yet Constantine, like a distant dream, always managed to sneak out from his clutches. The first finally made peace with his obsession and took joy in some occasional torture of Constantine. Soon, a situation arrived when the first had the opportunity to gain victory over Constantine by removing the destruction to his life and his friends, which was the result of their constant occult manipulation. The first made this adjustment at the cost of his immortal soul, but Constantine didn't resort to this arrangement and asked God to intercede for him, stopping the first from gaining complete victory. The pursuit continued until the first scored one up when he convinced Constantine's sister Cheryl to remain in hell in return for reducing her husband Tony's punishment by half. This manipulation by the first happened after Constantine had negotiated freedom for Cheryl. After this incident, the first lost track of Constantine's soul, who had rescued his sister. Later, the first and Constantine teamed up to bring Terry Greaves' soul, at the end of which the first knew what the fate of Constantine was at the end of the series. Powers. The first, after he became the first fallen angel, lost his divine features to a demonic look. While his superhuman strength, doubled with occultism and leadership, are his natural powers, there's much more to his power kitty. And he possesses a combination of supernatural powers and can travel through different dimensions, that is, from hell and earth, as and when he likes. His knowledge of the cosmic workings is immense. His powers are double-sided. For instance, if he can kill, he can also give life. He can infect as well as heal. He's capable of killing anyone by merely touching someone. He's indestructible through weapons or any artificial weapons. His position in hell as Satan automatically grants him immortality. He can control anyone's mind and drive them into causing mayhem. In addition, he possesses abundant powers in telekinesis, teleportation, granting wishes in exchange for one's soul, and controlling the souled souls, also termed necromancy. The first's perseverance to get to Constantine, his sense of judgment, and constant reassurance his power seat is intact are reasons for him being on this list. Nergal. Nergal is one of the most dangerous enemies of Constantine, who, years ago, gave young Constantine his first cigarette in hope of corrupting his innocent mind. Nergal first appeared in Hellblazer issue number 6 in June of 1988, when he was called in by First, who had found out that God was birthing a new Messiah. Nergal tainted Constantine with his blood and orchestrated him to consummate with the innocent lady Zed, nominated to be the Messiah's mother. This consummation tainted Zed and made her ineligible to birth the Messiah, which squashed Heaven's plans for a possible win. But Constantine, not the one to be coward, looked for other means to facilitate the birth of the Messiah. Constantine offered his body to Swamp Thing to use it to impregnate his lover, Abigail Cable. The union happens. This incident angers Nergal so much that he chases Constantine everywhere, but Constantine tricks him into entering Heaven's borders, where a vindictive angel kills him. Nergal, also known as God of War and Infection, is Enlil and Ninli's son. Later, he was made the god of death in the underworld. There's a detailed account of Nergal's yearly appearances. In 1958, Nergal, while in Liverpool, disguised as a child, controlled a man's mind and made him murder someone. Around this time, Nergal offered John his first cigarette and sowed the seeds of a vice in young Constantine's mind, which made him a chain smoker. But Nergal later figured that Constantine had robbed him of a whole pack of cigarettes. In 1979, Nergal had his first face-to-face with John Constantine at the Casanova Club in Newcastle, where John and his friends, the future Newcastle crew, were present. Their purpose in coming into the club was to stop a demon named Norfolthing, who was on a killing spree, dropping down occupants in retaliation to them abusing a little girl named Astra. She had summoned this demon to kill them, and to stop the massacre, John summoned a random demon with no name to kill Norfolthing, not knowing that John's summoned demon would be none other than Nergal. After killing Astra's demon, Nergal took away little Astra's soul to hell as payment for his deed. Being a witness to a child's soul taken to hell left Constantine disturbed for a long time. Then came the 80s, when Nergal stopped the birth of the new Messiah and created the Damnation Army, wherein he used Constantine, tainted with the blood of Nergal, to defile the innocent Zed. The monster Iron Fist came into being here, but Constantine tricked him, and the birth happened. In the 90s, Nergal survived the attack at the borders of heaven and returned to hell to recuperate, but unfortunately, Nergal spoke against against the First's idea to take Constantine's soul. This interruption angered the First so much that he converted Nergal into a mortal soul, butchered him, and scattered the parts in Hell's wastelands. By the millennium, Nergal, an embodiment of tenaciousness, picks up the pieces to regrow his demonic self and stake claim on his throne from his daughter Rosacarnis. But he realizes that the throne isn't his anymore. Rosacarnis had stolen it and left his brother Sterakax senseless in a poison pool. Nergal's efforts to reclaim his land prove futile, and yet again, he's cut up into pieces. This time, it's his daughter who harms him and scatters his body parts into the wastelands. Nergal pieces his body together, but into that of a rat, and flees to Earth. Nergal came back when Rosa was about to kill Constantine and set their 2 children on his friends and family. Constantine's sister Cherry falls into Rosa's trap this time. Using Constantine's emotional state of mind, Nergal offers to save his sister's soul from hell if Constantine helps him dethrone Rosa. Love for his sister forces Constantine to agree, but Constantine didn't know Nergal had Cheryl's soul within him and would use it to enter the otherwise impervious shield of his brother, Sterakax. But Nergal's plans foiled since the First of the Fallen kills him, along with Rosa and their 2 children. Springing back to life by 2010, Nergal returned to his homeland, Iraq, and feasted on the war-torn souls by using them in a game of poker with the gods of Babylonia. It was a high-stakes game in which he engaged with John Constantine, who was sent to investigate the strange things happening in the Middle East. Constantine wins the game since it is the only condition for Constantine's freedom. In another attempt, Nergal tried to ruin John Constantine's wedding with Epiphany Greaves because he couldn't see him happy. But here too, John Constantine tricks him into attacking Constantine's doppelganger, while John attacks Nergal from behind and cuts open his spine. Nergal's powers range from his immense strength to his being the master of magic. He's the strongest of the demons. His most dangerous weapon is his tongue. He has the power of telekinesis, can create demons from the dead, and has the power to regrow himself with a speck of his blood. Nergal's intense tenacity and never give up attitude makes him qualify to this list. Rosacarnis. Rosacarnis is the demoness offspring of Nergal, who lost her mother at an early age and was a witness to the goings-on in her father's life and the workings of hell. She knew of the First of the Fallen when he came to their castle and assigned her father to stop the birth of the new Messiah. Before leaving, her father took her to the basement and warned her never to show her weak side to the world. And while he was preaching to her, he asked her to stab their maid Erimi, the lady who sang lullabies for Rosa and took care of her. Rosa abided by her father's wish, after which Nergal left her in the care of his butler, Druth. Rosa first appeared as her young self in the Hellblazer issue number 194. When Nergal was killed for failing in his mission of stopping Constantine from the birth of the Messiah, Druth told Rosa that she was now in charge. He advised her not to trust anyone and offered himself as her loyal servant before he slapped her. The slap was an example of saying she shouldn't trust anyone. Rosa kept Druth by her side, but also had him flogged for beating her. She had indeed toughened to lead from the front. Rosa's meanness and shrewdness came into play in how she got rid of her uncle, Sterakax, who was about to claim her father's throne. Sterakax had an impervious shield protecting him and seemed invincible, but Rosa wasn't going to back off. She organized a massive feast, inviting humans to perform live in his uncle's honor as the new king of the land. She knew her uncle loved human meat and wouldn't spare any live performers. Unbeknownst to her uncle, the humans had been injected with poison. Sterakax gets infected and collapses. Rosa kills his guards and throws him in a pool of poison so that her uncle remains in a comatose state. Over the years, Rosa kept an eye on John Constantine, the man who killed her father. She wanted to destroy him, but when her father crawled out of his grave in a decomposed state and sought her help, she didn't want to believe it was him. She didn't want to give the throne to someone who looked like a work-in-progress demon. She killed him and sent him back to a state where he had to regrow himself. Rosa got an opportunity to kill Constantine in 2004 when he was suffering from amnesia. She took the guise of her childhood self to get close to him. He fled to escape her, but ran into a serial killer named Peter Gill, who was after him. Constantine escapes when Rosa meets Constantine and promises to return his memories and skills in exchange for a day of his life, but he refuses. However, Constantine fell prey to the wrath of a cult belonging to magician Gaunt, who was going to burn him down. Cornered, Constantine accepts Rosa's offer and falls into the trap. In this trap, Constantine was exposed to 3 realms of reality, and Rosa Rosa sired with Constantine in each realm. All 3 children from this union grew up in different age groups: Adam at 5, Saul at 20, and Maria at 14. These 3 go into the real world and kill Constantine's friends and family. One of their victims was Cheryl, who Constantine rescued, while Rosa and her 3 children met their fate at the hands of the first of the fallen. Powers. As a demoness, Rosacarnis can take on any form, although her real self is that of a dark-haired white person. She often caught Constantine off guard in her childhood appearance, i.e. that of a blonde girl. She's shrewd, manipulative, and calculative, and she won't bat an eyelid in destroying anything that gets in the way of her target. She didn't even spare her father to keep her throne intact. Being a demoness amongst the demons isn't easy, and that's why she's on this list. King of the Vampires. It seems strange, but no one knows why the King of Vampires, a vampire, bears a striking resemblance to Hollywood star James Dean with his leather jacket and brown hair. He debuted in the Hellblazer issue number 50. The King's origins aren't known, but he admits having lived in other worlds before he came to Earth. His whereabouts in the different worlds are unknown, but the time he arrived on Earth coincided with the appearance of the first human being. This incident happened somewhere in Africa. He feasted on this first human and claimed his first victim. He walked the earth for thousands of years and sucked the blood out of victims from ancient Rome and the World War I. During the First World War, he met William Constantine, a high-ranked Marine, and feasted on him. The king then established his own kingdom in the deepest sections of the planet, a home for vampires and his children, a place not reachable by any man. He met the first of the fallen, who considered him nothing but a dandy. The king also established his court and began socially meeting people who were outcasts, such as monsters, deranged people, and criminals, to build his base. In 1992, when the king heard about John Constantine's win over the first, second, and third of the fallen, he offered John a place in his court as a vampire, but John turned him down. The king's displeasure increased when John said he preferred being a mortal to a vampire, since the former allowed him to know what it felt like to look into the eyes of a woman who loved him. And what good is this world if one can't stroll in the sunlight? The king, unable to argue, let him go. After a year, the king again made Constantine an offer when he found him desolate on the streets, heartbroken from a recent breakup with his girl Kit. John again refused. Enraged, the king reached for Constantine's neck, but John's demon blood began to feast on the king's face. John then dragged the weakened king towards sunlight, and he burst into flames. Powers. The king looks human, except for those fangs that provide for his vampire abilities. He also has the power to take on different forms, such as an animal or a giant. He's also known to dissipate into a misty atmosphere. King's unassuming, dapper look and holier-than-thou offer to Constantine make him unique and, therefore, on this list. Gabriel. Archangel Gabriel is heaven's high-ranking official who, despite his angelic features and behavior, is as cold as meat with no compassion for anyone, although he appreciates all beings. It is his attitude that leads to his downfall. John Constantine tasted Gabriel's annoying attitude when he approached him to cure his lung cancer in exchange for an old favor. Gabriel promptly turned him down and asked him to die since he had to pay for his sins. To exact revenge, Constantine uses his demoness Ellie to honey trap him, and while in the throes of physical intimacy, Ellie rips his heart out and cuts off his wings. Stranded with wings cut, Gabriel had no choice but to run to God. Now that he was tainted, God relegates him to a mortal, transfers him to Earth as a mortal, and strips him of his powers. Gabriel plans revenge against Constantine, who has already struck a deal with him. Gabriel had to procure information on how to kill the first of fallen, but the first murders Gabriel instead. Gabriel first made an appearance in Hellblazer issue number 11. He is on this list since I saw his journey from being an angel to becoming a fallen one. He also puts to rest all misconceptions about angels being compassionate. As a mortal, Gabriel has antagonistic hues and is also the owner of a club. Powers. It's not very clear about his powers. Still, there is an account of his powers as reminisced in the Fear and Loathing arc, in which he destroys the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and Egypt's progenies within a night. He's the one who caused the conception in Virgin Mary. He's a master swordsman and has the power of being omnipresent. Cain. Since all information about Cain available on the net has no link with Constantine, I have dropped him and added Great Darkness to the list. Great Darkness. In many ways, the Great Darkness is Pralaya, who wants to take Earth back to its original existence when Earth was covered with water and darkness. It was first let loose by Brujeria, who wanted it to reshape the world and use darkness to consume God, also known as the Awakening. The Swamp Thing and Constantine teamed up to stop the Awakening. Finally, the Swamp Thing convinced the Great Darkness that for it to exist, light was needed, and similarly, good and evil are two sides of the same coin. Convinced with logic, he merged with God. Powers. Apart from its powers of mind control and teleporting, the Great Darkness, the source of darkness, can plunge anything into darkness, threatening creation. It's omnipresent and can take any form. The Great Darkness is on this list because it has a philosophical take on the existence of creation, which was rightfully put by the Swamp Thing. Buer. Buer is a demon who's like the warden of all the children's souls sent to hell. He served as the main villain in the Critical Mass storyline. He appeared in the Hellblazer Volume 1 issue number 95. Buer's main job was to get the first of the fallen back as the ruler, for which he had to move John Constantine out of the way. He does this by taking Constantine's friend Rich's son as hostage and demanding John's death as ransom. John agrees, but Buer doesn't realize that John has created another being to take his place in death. The first of the fallen returned as ruler, but Constantine escaped death. To worsen things, John left with all the children's souls in control of hell, including Astra's. They were all freed. Enraged, the first destroyed Buer. Buer had all the powers of a demon, but in a limited version. He made it to this list to get an idea of the assistance the rulers of hell got in their fight against Constantine. Pralaya. Pralaya is a cosmic entity that embodies void, whose single purpose is to leave nothing except space, just like before creation happened. Although considered a minor antagonist in the DC Comics multiverse, she debuted in the 2011 Justice League Dark Volume 1 issue 39 comic series. She's a neutral entity and an organic part of the multiverse. Her first encounter was with the Justice League Dark, who witnessed her speeding through space-time and eroding all of reality so that everything ended and nothing existed. As per Pralaya, everything came into being from the void and will return to the void and its source, the womb. She motivated each Justice League Dark member to renounce the world and tempted them with peace that void brought, but they didn't heed her advice. When she consumed the multiverse, she could do it till the point that the Justice League Dark remained, who later used magic on her to return the creation to normalcy and drove her into nothingness. In the new 52 series of Justice League Dark, the members come across many paranormal threats, including their enemy, Pralaya. She ends up killing them and everything by consuming Yggdrasil, the World Tree. But that was an eyewash, since this was part of a rather detailed plan made by Constantine and Zatanna. They knew no one could take on Pralaya directly. It would be futile, so they tricked her into consuming the World Tree, which Constantine, using his occult powers, reseeded. The tree grew to its original glory from inside Pralaya, which restored creation and repelled Pralaya. Pralaya made it to this list because she's the philosophical and spiritual of the lot, driving one theme: we have come from nothing and need to go back into nothing, into nothingness. This power of void makes her memorable and unique. Also, Pralaya knew the end of the world would happen since it was inevitable, so she wasn't being desperate. Pralaya has the power to dissolve anything since she personifies void. Her powers to make everything nothing also made her immortal and godly, granting her omnipresence. Lucifer. A former ruler of hell, Lucifer Morningstar is a fallen angel who supervised hell, being a part of a triumvirate. However, Lucifer abdicated his position and let the first of the fallen, the original Satan, rule over hell. Although weaker, the first always thought he deserved the position of ruler more than anyone else. Lucifer ruled hell for 10,000 years, fighting the war against heaven. He rebelled exactly for 3 seconds after creation. During his reign, he pitted demons against one another and saw mortals' souls tormented. Slowly, he realized that mortals had stereotyped him as the devil who forced mortals to commit evil acts. They thought he was in the business of purchasing and trading souls, which wasn't true. He got bored and felt it wasn't right that he had to rule just because he rebelled once. At the end of the series, it's divulged that hell was a gift to Lucifer, to be as far as possible from God and away from his omnipresence. But again, that was a lie, since God watched him throughout, which is why Lucifer felt shortchanged by his father. He then left hell. Lucifer met Constantine in other media. In the movie Constantine, Lucifer promises to cure John's illness with his assistance, but instead, John asks Lucifer to release someone else, that is, Isabel. When Lucifer does this, John automatically qualifies to go to heaven for doing a selfless deed. Enraged, Lucifer grants John life and cures his illness, hoping he would know that his rightful place is hell. Powers. Lucifer is omnipotent and has supernatural powers capable of shaping anything, be it any state of matter or even something as abstract as time. However, he can't make something out of nothing. The only person who equals his powers is his brother Michael Demiurgos, and God is his superior. In certain dimensions, he is powerless, and he's without wings, which restricts his movement. Lilith's storyline hints that God could destroy Lucifer anytime he wished, and Lucifer often wondered why his father, God, hadn't acted upon it yet. Lucifer is brilliant and has an almost omniscient intellect with intense will. If instigated, Lucifer usually uses fire as a weapon of attack. Before becoming fallen, he used to be God's lamplighter, who would make clouds of hydrogen denser and make them star masses. He would then set them alight. Battles with Lucifer usually involve him pulling down an overheated star from the galaxy and using the heat to turn anything into ash in the area. He has superhuman strength and telepathy. In the New 52 series, Lucifer's powers show that he controls human souls, not animals. He has the power to open vessels from hell to earth and back. He can see the future due to his immense knowledge of time. Lucifer debuted in the DC Comics The Sandman issue number 4 in 1989. Lucifer made it to this list because he was bold enough to denounce his position as the Lord of Hell. He questions that his rebelliousness doesn't make him liable to run hell, and this attitude makes him the most special of all the villains. Third of the Fallen. God made the Third of the Fallen after he created the first to have someone supervise the first's actions. So, God created the second and the third, who had equal powers as the first and could operate as a triumvirate in its face-off against eternity, which prevented any of them from gaining full control of hell. And if any of the three fallen angels tried to veer from the triumvirate, they would be destroyed in civil war. Other triumvirates existed around this time, including the one with Lucifer, but the first, second, and third triumvirate was the real balance of power. Third of the Fallen made his debut in Hellblazer issue number 45. Third of the Fallen first came face to face with Constantine when a girl named Annette summoned him. Annette was in a relationship with John Constantine's friend Seth in the 1980s, who she suspected was cheating on her, so she got intimate with John so that she could dive into his occult tricks to summon the Third of the Fallen. She summoned the Third and asked him to punish Seth. The Third magically transformed into Annette and caponized him. However, Annette was overcome with guilt and took her life. Third of the Fallen first faced Constantine when he sold his soul to him to cure him of his lung cancer. Third met his end when the first figured his other two members, the third and the second, weren't his contemporaries and were, in fact, weaker than him. He killed them both and went all out to get Constantine. An unknown third party then used the remains of the second and third to create Twin Blade. Third of the Fallen made it to this list since it gives an idea about the workings of the first triumvirate in hell. His powers were like those of the first, which was later found less intense than the first. He's vindictive and shows aggression, causing both physical and emotional pain. The Family Man. The Family Man is an ex-cop who's a serial killer out to kill families. From each of his family victims, he retains a souvenir, which he puts for sale through a fence. Filled with pessimism, the Family Man faced an emotional setback as a kid when his pet dog died. His father berated him for being too sissy and asked him to keep up the iconic stiff upper lip, typical to every Britisher. This advice drove the Family Man to have zero emotions and made him a sociopath who first claimed the lives of his parents while they were asleep. He became a well-known police officer, which was more of a front to escape suspicion. He continued to kill people for over a decade. When John Constantine tried to nab him, he failed, and the Family Man, in retaliation, killed John's father, Thomas. This charade continued for a while until Constantine shot him with a .357 Magnum revolver. The Family Man's dead body was thrown into a lagoon. The Family Man debuted in Hellblazer Volume 1 in 1990. He made it to this list for his unique victims. Who kills a whole family and retains a souvenir? The Demon Constantine. Demon Constantine is John Constantine's demonic side, made of all the least lovable parts of John's personality. He was made with Nergal's demonic blood and Aleister Crowley's soul. He debuted in Hellblazer issue number 94. He can't be absent from hell for long unless summoned properly. John Constantine realized at some point that the only way to save kidnapped children would be to send his demonic side to hell. He made his demonic self by using Aleister Crowley's spell, wherein he emptied the despicable aspects of his soul into a golem. Golem's life got extended since it used Crowley's soul. After this, Golem worked his way around hell to release the trapped souls of the children and ended his life. After death, Golem was sent to hell, but since Crowley's soul was still inside him, it took the fair share of the punishment. John asked Golem to merge with him, but he refused. Instead, Golem asked John to get intimate with Demoness Ellie to retain his tainted side. Sometime later, Demon Constantine writhed in pain since Crowley's soul escaped hell. Here, Demon pleaded with John to take him back, but he refused. He arranged for Crowley to return to hell so that his demonic side could be freed from pain. The Demon Constantine became a permanent resident of hell, but he missed Earth and tried to get back many times. He even attended a wild auction of Constantine's body by magician Gaunt, but escaped the place when the first of the fallen appeared for Constantine. When Constantine visited hell to rescue his sister Cheryl's soul, Demon Constantine asked him to take him back, but that was not to happen as Nergal ripped his throat. The demon didn't die and recovered from the wound when he was mistakenly summoned by John's drummer friend Bino. He killed Bino and used his invitation to sneak into John's wedding, where he killed John and took his place as groom to bride Epiphany Greaves. He even assaulted John's niece Gemma, but Nergal appeared on the scene and ripped the demon's heart. Demon Constantine finds himself on this list because of the novelty he brings. Imagine being the demonic side of a person. His character was a revelation. Demon Constantine possesses demonic powers like the others. Demon Constantine wasn't bad and often repented for his misdeeds as a demon, including the one where he ruined John's wedding. Papa Midnite. Papa Midnite made his first appearance in the first issue of Hellblazer in 1988. He's known to be the greatest occultist, specializing in curses and necromancy, John's rival and staunchest enemy. Papa Midnite's weakness rests in a special rifle that's an antique from the Ace of Winchesters, and he will go to any extent to acquire it, but unfortunately, he always loses it. Papa Midnite, named Linton, was born alongside his twin sister Luna in the 18th century. Their mother taught them magic and died later. The siblings moved to NYC and acquired a white landlord's home. Here, they cast a spell on the landlord and made him their puppet. They then used the place to sell guns. Once, an activist, Cuffy, fighting against slavery, asked Papa to create a magical dust to deflect bullets. The magic, however, didn't work and resulted in hundreds of his slave brothers being shot. As a punishment, Cuff and his friends demanded that Papa behead his beloved sister and then cursed him to remain alive as long as white people ruled over black people. Papa tried to revive the rebellion with Cuff's son Fortune by communicating with the African god Anansi, but the plan didn't work and was doomed. This failure also happens because Fortune reveals their plans to everyone, which enrages Papa, who summons Anansi to kill Fortune. Anansi, however, turned on Papa and sent him off to the West Indies, where he became enslaved. Papa continued to practice magic using his sister's skull to communicate with the dead. After his sister moved on to another world, Papa tried talking to other sisters. One such girl was Sadia from Trenchtown, Jamaica, where Papa talked her brother into killing her by severing her head. He then trapped Sadilla's soul and sent her to hell as his informant. Papa's interactions with Constantine first happened in the 1980s when he tried to sell the Ark of Winchester rifle to Constantine through a broker. Papa had now moved back to NYC and became an underworld don who ran a nightclub. When the broker upped the price of the antique rifle, John stole it. In addition, John also stole $50,000 from Papa. Despite all this, Papa helps John when a hunger demon attacks him, and Papa uses his magic to get an electric chair from a prison. He then helped John summon a demon and attach it to the body of Gary Lester, who consumes the demon. At some point, Papa got back at Constantine by sending his soul to hell. While in hell, John released the soul of Sadilla, who had returned to Earth and hunted down Papa. Full of vengeance, she compelled Papa to jump off the Empire State Building. Papa, however, doesn't die and returns to his illegal business when Fortune's ghost asks him to return to the rebellion. It was also the time when Constantine sought Papa's help against Shadow Dog, but he refused. Papa Midnite is on this list, first because he comes from another era, and second, he's the only villain who believes in a political political cause. Papa Midnite has been seen in many appearances, but his iconic look is wearing a grass skirt, top, and hat. Magic is his most formidable power. Invunche. A demon who ravaged humans in the days of Noah was summoned in Mexico by an organization of male witches named Brujeria. He took a hideous form with his head facing backwards, his limbs disjointed, and his humanoid body was twisted. Invunche debuted in the Swamp Thing volume, number 37 in 1985. John's friend Zed Martin first felt the presence of Invunche and drew a picture of it, and John described the creature. Invunche very methodically went out to kill all those close to John Constantine, including the Newcastle crew. Invunche first went for an American artist named Emma. He appeared in her studio as an image in her sketches that took a bodily form and tyrannized Emma such that she jumped off the window. Invunche then went for Sister Anne Marie, a Catholic nun and John's ex-lover, by stalking her in a public place. Constantine and Anna Marie first faced Invunche while escaping their Lamashtu hiding place. Anne tried shooting Invunche, but John forbade her from doing so since it would bring them on its radar. Finally, Anne made a tough choice by shooting John and escaping with the babies. John was left in the underpassage to bleed so that Invunche's movement could be stopped. In his bleeding state, John summoned the icon of Pazuzu, thus attracting Invunche, who approached to bite him. He punched Invunche a couple of times on his head and called the spirit of the demon king Pazuzu into his body. It was a gamble he was taking using the dark magic of the devil, but he did it anyway. Pazuzu possesses John and sneers at Invunche, which scares him away. At some point, the Invunche returned to the Brujeria's Council of the Cave and attacked John Constantine. He captured Constantine and dragged him down into the darkest place in the cave where the Brujeria performed their rituals. Powers. Invunche has demonic physiology, superhuman strength, and agility. He made it to this list because of his hideous form and because he was one of the oldest monsters from the time of Noah. Shadow Dog. The Shadow Dog, or Kwai Ipa, first debuted in Hellblazer issue 179 in 2003. John initially mistook Shadow Dog as an enemy, but it was only later created to save humanity from the Beast. The Beast is a monster who has no form. Another theory says that a Shadow Dog's appearance when a disaster happens in any part of the world is because it's the cause and not the cure of the disaster, and that's why John mistook him. As the legend goes, in the Garden of Eden, when Adam was naming the animals present there, one of them escaped and, therefore, took any form it pleased. This creature named Beast, who had no physical form, tailed Adam everywhere with the vile intention of killing him and his children. The Shadow Dog came into existence to save humanity from this beast, but as years passed, the Shadow Dog got entangled in the beast's grievous actions, and people started to think the dog was the cause of them. The Shadow Dog's first appearance happened when it came in the dream of a Zimbabwean crime lord, Dominique Fredericks, wherein the dog dissuaded him from taking possession of the Red Sepulchre. This mystical portal could open doors between the world and the afterlife. If this happened, the beast would freely cross over. Even John Constantine discouraged Dominique from doing so, but unfortunately, the first door had already been opened. John worked with another magician, Angie Spatchcock, to stop the beast and learned about its past, which they thought was the Shadow Dog's past until now. Constantine, along with a team of occultists, worked hard to stop the beast, who had taken shelter within Angie's brother Jason's body. The dog sensed the beast was hiding within Jason and tried to kill it, but Angie scared the dog with a blood sigil. The magicians and Constantine managed to summon the Shadow Dog into a pentagram that attacked Jason, weakening him. The beast immediately took down a weakened dog, after which the beast went on a rampage, destroying everything that came his way. John uses his niece Gemma and instructs her to resurrect the dog, which she does with the help of Angie, the Swamp Thing, and other allies. The Shadow Dog was resurrected by the collective unconsciousness of humanity who consumed the beast, preventing humanity from becoming extinct. Powers. The Shadow Dog is a ferocious-looking black dog who has the power to consume the beast should it take refuge in a human. Its single-minded dedication to destroy the beast makes Shadow Dog an epitome of loyalty to the cause of saving humanity, and that's why it's on this list. Marvelous Verdict. John Constantine's mastery of dealing with different kinds of villains makes him the greatest occultist who belongs to a bloodline of mages known as the Laughing Magicians, known to trick and bluff gods. But this list stands out because we figure how the demonic side must be brought out in dire straits and not as a habit. We mortals can't afford to have a demonic side because the law of the land doesn't allow it, but we have the armor of faith in the ultimate source of strength, God. Keep the faith and look out for the next list. A marvelous salute. Do let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons to stay up to date with all our marvelous content. Well, that's it for now, but don't worry, because we will catch up with you in the next video real soon.